So how do you actually put together a decent army list? That's the question I will be pondering about in this video. And luckily nowadays we have the internet to provide us with a lot of answers for different list suggestions and other ways in which we can get informed about armies that you might be new to. So in general, whenever I build an army, there's two sides to it. It's one of it is what do I actually want to field, and the other is what do I want to achieve with it. So what do I want to field? Yeah, that's basically based on your model collection, and also based on what kinds of models you think are awesome, what kinds of rules you think you really want to use. And what kind of goals you want to achieve? Yeah, there's quite a big difference between tournament lists for single play and for team tournament play. Whilst some army lists can get away with being suitable for both, but generally, what a lot of people think is that for singles tournaments, you need a list that can either deal with anything that you encounter and just hope that nobody else scores 3 major victories in a row. Or you should just go for a skewed list, hoped for a good matchup, and get 20 zeros all the way. Yeah, so I'm a bit leaning towards this putting down a list that can handle with nearly everything as long as you play correctly with it, because I feel that is the most entertaining to play. I once played a tournament where I played the Strigoi Vampire Covenant Army with the two big gold blocks and I believe even some Graveguard in there. And if you get into the bad matchup, then yeah, there's definitely some bad matchups for this army. Yeah, if you really get a bad matchup, then you forget about it with this army, because you're not going to be able to pull off a major win in any way. And I think it's a bit of a shame to let it depend on the luck of the draw. And that, yeah, obviously you can always do better in your games. But for me, if I participate in a tournament, I like participating with at least a chance of going for the first or second or third place. So that's why I normally make some lists that can that in my mind can handle a great deal of things. One exception probably is my Dread Elves army, which is kind of vulnerable to mobile shooting, and nowadays there's a lot of Vermin Swarm on the table, so it might not be the perfect list to play right now. Yeah, you can see a bit of a basic guideline on how to go through a list building process. This is by no means the standard way of doing it, or maybe even the best way, but it's a way to. It's a bit of a toolbox to help you guys to get used to how to build a list. So what I realized that I first do is that I normally just choose some cool units or characters that I want to build a list around, and what I definitely want to include in the list. And then the only restriction, but besides having a general in 9th Age, is that you have sufficient core in your list and that you don't overspend on certain categories. Usually when I just choose a couple of units, then I don't overspend on any other categories yet. So then you get to look at the suitable core. And then, well, hopefully you still have some points left. Maybe you need a little bit more heavy lifters in your list. If so, then you can add those. And then you add the suitable support and see if you're at 4,500 points. Then the important bit here is to get the balance right, and you only get this right basically by just either having a lot of experience in building lists or by playing a lot of battles and realizing what you like. And I would say that maybe newer players they tend to get too much of the heavy lifter units and too little of the support units. But it's true that on paper, just a unit of mounted human has just like 5 strength, 3 attacks, and it doesn't really seem to be doing anything, whilst it's still 100 something points. But in, for example, the Kingdom of Aquitaine army, they can still provide a vital role in being very maneuverable and also exhibiting a lot of lateral movement options, so not forward and just also going to the side. Yeah, so I hope that this sheet can help you guys a little bit. Just as an example, I'll start building a list now, and I'll walk you through the options that I'm taking. So for this video, I will construct a new army list for beast herds. It's an army that I don't own myself, but I always found it funny to have a Minotaur army. So we'll just go through the same kind of procedure that we talked about before. So the main thing in this army is going to be the Minotaur. So I want to fit in as many as possible, and so here we go to the options. I want to have, well, 8 in a unit is going to seem nice. I think shields are a good option for Minotaurs. We just put on some upgrades. And I am going to struggle a little bit with speed in the list, but I might want to compensate for that in other choices. I might want to put in a banner of the Relentless Company because it always enables you to work pretty well with infantry. So then we'll duplicate this unit. And we give him instead I'm thinking Stalker Standard, just to be able to deal with ruins, but I think the running banner is also a good one. We could also have gone Flaming Standard and try to get an Alchemy Mage in there, but I don't think Beast Herds can get an Alchemy Mage. So this is only 3 Minotaurs now, so we need a couple of more. And as this is a list where I really want to have a lot of Minotaurs, basically, I'm gonna add a 3rd unit here, and oh, this is a beast lord. This is not going well. So this is a list where I actually, I'm doing it again, where I actually focus more on combat units than I normally would. So here we have another unit of Minotaurs. I'm gonna give these guys great weapons just to be able to deal with armor a bit more. And which kind of totem we take later, I'm gonna decide later, but probably I am gonna take a totem because it's a good way to just upgrade your units a little bit in beast herds. So now this is the core of the army, 3 blocks of Minotaurs that are gonna smash everything they encounter, hopefully. So yeah, next thing is to take a cool character with that. So as we're going for Minotaurs, I would take a Minotaur Warlord Chieftain. We need a BSB in this unit for the Primal Fury, that's for sure. So we'll take a Minotaur Chieftain. We're making BSB, and then there's always the issue of magic, how much magic you want. With the totem bearers, I can either take a greater totem bearer on the BSB or individual totems on the units, or both, and also in addition a mage, of course. Yeah, I'm just gonna forgo that for now. Probably a beast axe is good. I don't know what it does, but probably it's good. And weapon enchantments, and oh my god, this is so much that I don't know. I'll just leave about 100 points for him over so that we can look at that later. So this is a bit of the bulk of the list. Yeah, I'm doubting whether to go for a Minotaur Warlord because maybe the Minotaurs themselves are already sturdy enough.
or to go for a Soothsayer, which is going to hide somewhere in a core unit. So we'll just do that because I think that the Soothsayer adds more to the list rather than the Minotaurs. So Avocation is a cool lore, Shamanism is a cool lore, but you need a Wizard Master on this lore, I would say. Druidism I never understood, so we'll just go for Shamanism to just make it very beast hardy. We can take a Raiding Chariot for this guy, and I think this is an interesting option. He's going to be the general too, so possibly the leadership in the list is going to be too low, so this might be an issue that I encounter now, so maybe we do still need a model with a higher leadership. We haven't filled out the core yet, so I also know that if you take Raiding Chariots and you take 3 of those, I believe, then they get to go to core. Does this work this way? Yes. So we can duplicate this unit to Minotaurs, yes. Da, 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 da. Yep, cool. So now we get to 660 points core, whilst we need 20% at least. And the Raiding Chariots, the reason why I include them in the list is because you still need some far-reaching kind of offensive units. Because otherwise the Minotaurs are going to be the furthest charging in your list, and you might have to sacrifice one unit to enable the other Minotaurs to be able to charge. Then we can still choose some Mongrel Raiders. So the Soothsayer in this list can also just go in one unit of Raiding Chariots. We can still equip him with some defensive items. So the Mongrel Raiders are there to just skirmish a little bit. 95 points. Sky's an ambush. That's kind of cool. So if I take this and if we take another unit of this, yeah, then we're nearly there, I believe. If we give this a position, then I believe we're at 910 points. Okay, that's fine. So this is a basic setup now of the list, and then we go to the next section where we either add some hard-hitting units or we add some chaff. At this point we're already at 3,951 points. I don't know how I got this 1 point in the, oh, in special, yeah. Okay, so we don't need any Terrors of the Wild, I think. So let's look here. We just need stuff that can chaff your opponent up, basically. So Centaurs are a very interesting unit, I think, in general in these sets, because they have a high damage output and they're still quite cheap. Gargoyles are in this list quite interesting. So we will actually go for at least 1 unit of gargoyles, maybe 2 depending on the price. They don't. I could have given them scout. So this is the question of what you want to do. Do you want a list that plays over a couple of more turns, or do you want to put scout on the gargoyles to be able to use them first turn? I'll just go for 2 units gargoyles, and then I still want some centaurs in there. Centaurs. Create unit. 5 of them. Yeah, so paired weapons is cool on these guys. They don't need anything really. Just keep it cheap. And centaurs, there are 185 points. So at this point I would just leave the points that we have open to equip the characters. And also we have 1 Minotaur Chieftain that goes into the Minotaurs, so we can take away 1 of these Minotaurs, because I think units of 8 are big enough. So we have more points to equip our characters. Generally for Magic I don't really upgrade my my mages in to get them being better at casting magic, because I find that just a wizard master is usually sufficient. We can give this guy some extra armor. Yeah, so Alchemist Alloy is always nice on a wizard or a mage. I don't know. Oh, yeah, light armor, bad weapons, sure. That should be probably enough already. So then we still go to the Minotaur Chieftain, just round up a bit, and yeah, basically you can just give him some weapon. I don't know all these things, so I'll just give him some stuff here. Well, Duskforged is not really the best, at least. We'll give him Willer's Ward, because anyway he has a shield. That's nice. Yeah, so this is a bit of a basic way to construct a list. I'm by no means saying that this is right now a very good list. I would definitely try to fix the leadership issue here, because the leadership of the Soothsayer, can we see it here? Oh, the discipline, it's only 8. Oh, that's still okay. You can just take a crown of autocracy, really, to get him to lead to discipline 9. So the downside of the crown of autocracy is that your opponent gets more points if he kills your general. Usually in a list, if your opponent is able to kill your general in a list where it's, for example, your Soothsayer on a chariot hiding in a unit of raiding chariots, then you're doing something wrong. So then the battle goes wrong anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, now we're close to 4,500, and I'm actually not too upset with how this list turned out. Yeah, I still want to give it a try one day, really. If only I had the models for this.
So now we made an army list. The one thing I didn't talk about yet very explicitly is magic. How do you decide your magic setup? And that's like with the characters and then with units. There's 2 ways of doing this. Either you want to already go for a specific set of magic and really want to include this in the list. Alternatively, I mostly base my magic choices on what type of list I'm building. So I'm first building the list, and then at the end I actually decide what kind of lore I would like to have to supplement the army most. So probably other players might do this differently, but this is magic doesn't interest me that much really in the game. And then as a quick evaluation tool, you can run over a couple of armies that might give you some trouble and consider how your list, how you would expect your list to play against it. So here's a short list of the kind of stuff you might think about when you are putting together your list. So if your list can deal, or if you can imagine your list to be able to deal with all of these threats, then probably you made quite a decent list. So yeah, for example, a rush list that's in your face in turn 2, Sylvan Elf Avoidance that you have to be able to catch, or just have to have some ranged output to deal with. Stuff like a steam tank or a war sphinx, just lots of scoring, which is mostly something to consider in a team environment where it's also convenient to just be able to go for the draw and then try to win on the objective. Stuff like heavy armor, which Empire can bring, which the Warriors of the Dark Gods can bring. Grinding, high agility, close combat. This is something that some people might not consider, but so for example, for Warriors of the Dark Gods, there's some Dread Elf armies you can build that completely smash these armies, and I think I'll just start playing a bit more in a tournament with that, maybe. Then multiple anti-infantry tools, like stuff like salamanders and flame cannons that don't have a lot of armor penetration but hit you for every rank you have. Then balanced armies, and I think those are generally the toughest to gear up against. Long distance charges, for example with Demon Legions and Kingdom of Aquitaine. Just a lot of chariots, which is something that mostly elves suffer from. That they're not really able to deal with this. And Monster Mash is also a bit of an anti-infantry list. So if you can say yes to all of these questions very confidently, then probably you're cheating. Because yeah, the one that you never can rule out is the balanced armies, I think. Especially with a good player with a balanced army, you can always turn it at least into a minor victory for yourself. But there's some considerations. There's some rock paper scissors matchups going on here. So for example, if you have a sit back and relax kind of list with just a lot of war machines and it's just a gun line, then probably you quite happily play into some war sphinxes and just shoot them off with some cannons or so. But yeah, these are the kinds of things that you have to consider at the end of building your list. But at the end, you can also alter your list still a little bit and take some choices that you think might play a bit better against certain matchups to improve your overall win chances, obviously. But yeah, in the end, you can tinker your list a lot and keep tinkering it for weeks and weeks, basically. I hope this video was instructive for you guys, and well, see you in the next one.